Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're tackling a topic that I think is on every parent's mind these days. How to raise emotionally healthy kids, especially with all the challenges of today's world. And to help us with this, we're going to be taking a deep dive into this book, Raising Emotionally Healthy Children in Today's Society.
Yeah, you know what I think is so interesting about this book is it doesn't just like give you a list of do's and don'ts, right?
Yeah.
It actually goes deeper into like the psychology of parenting and how different approaches really affect kids in the long run, especially now with all the technology and everything.
Right, because I feel like we've all heard about, those four main parenting styles: authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and uninvolved. But this book like really breaks them down like way more than I ever thought about before.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and the thing is like none of us are like perfectly just one style all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like you might lean one way, but then, get yourself doing something totally different in another moment, depending on the situation or even like which kid it is. It's about like understanding those patterns in ourselves, like why we react the way we do sometimes.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. Like I think I'm generally pretty permissive, but then with technology, I'm like suddenly super strict. Like, put the phone down now. Am I like a parenting chameleon or what?
Well, the book actually talks about how tech kind of like blurs the lines between those old school parenting styles. Like you can be pretty chill in general, but then like super strict with screen time. It's kind of wild how that all works now.
Makes you realize it's less about fitting a label and more about just being mindful and being ready to adapt, I guess.
Totally. And they even use case studies in the book to show how all this plays out in real life.
Mm.
Like there's this one about a teenager whose parents were very authoritarian, you know, very strict. And then when they got on social media, it's like they went totally wild.
Yeah.
Like super secretive and rebellious online.
Oh, wow, yeah. Because it's not just about the parenting style itself, right? It's like it interacts with the whole world around us. And all the technology everyone has access to now is a huge part of that.
For sure. And the book goes even bigger picture with it too. It's saying like your parenting style really sets the stage for how your kids learn to handle their emotions and their relationships too.
So it's like we're giving them an emotional roadmap. And that roadmap has got to include some serious tech terrain these days.
Exactly. That's where things get really interesting. Like one thing the book talks about is how important it is to teach kids the words for their emotions, you know, like really build their vocabulary. There's this great phrase in the book. It says, name it to tame it.
Oh, I love that. That's so simple, but it makes so much sense. Like if they can't even say what they're feeling, how can they possibly deal with those big, messy emotions?
Totally. And it's not just about giving them the words. It's about creating a safe space for them to express themselves,
Yeah.
you know, honestly and openly.
And that starts with us, right? Like we can't expect our kids to be open about their feelings if we're always like bottling ours up.
100%. The book talks about how parents need to model healthy emotional expression. It's about being vulnerable with our kids, letting them see that it's okay to feel all sorts of things, even the hard stuff.
Okay, so let's say I'm having a tech meltdown because the Wi-Fi is down and I can't get my work done. Instead of like screaming at the router, I should be saying something like, wow, I am so frustrated right now because I can't connect to the internet.
Exactly. You're naming the feeling and explaining why you feel that way. That helps your kids understand that frustration is normal. And it gives them like a script for expressing their own frustration in a healthy way.
Oh, that's so helpful. Like we're giving them the tools to become emotionally fluent. But what about when they're struggling to manage those big feelings? The book mentions praise a lot, but how do we help them actually build resilience?
You know, the book has this really interesting point about different kinds of praise. Generic versus descriptive.
Okay, break that down for me. What's the difference?
Well, generic praise is just like saying, good job, or you're so smart, But descriptive praise is more specific. It focuses on the effort they put in, not just the outcome.
Oh, okay, I see. Give me like an example.
Let's say your kid is stuck in a math problem, right? Instead of saying, you're so good at math, you'll get it, you say something like, I see how hard you're working to figure this out. I love how you're trying different things. That persistence is going to help you succeed.
Wow, yeah, that is way more powerful than just a good job. It shows them you're actually paying attention to their process, not just the end result.
Exactly. And what's cool is how that kind of praise connects to building resilience. When kids are praised for their effort, they're more likely to see challenges as chances to grow instead of like threats to their self-worth.
Like we're teaching them to embrace the struggle, to know that it's actually making them stronger.
Right on. And that's so important for dealing with everything life throws their way. especially with all the technology and stuff.
It's like all these pieces are starting to fit together. It's about building that foundation of emotional intelligence. And tech is like this huge piece of that puzzle, right?
Absolutely. And that's where things get even trickier.
Yeah, because it's not just about limiting screen time. It's about teaching them to use it in a healthy way. And let's be real, some days it feels like an impossible battle. Like, how do we even start setting boundaries when tech is like woven into their lives?
Well, there's actually this really cool idea in the book. It's called the Family Media Use Contract.
All right, what is that? Tell me more.
Basically, it's like a family agreement about how technology gets used at home. It's not about like imposing rules or whatever. It's about working together to create a plan that everyone feels good about.
Ooh, so it's like a family summit on tech.
Yeah. You all sit down together, talk about the good and bad of technology be open and honest, and then come up with some guidelines that you all agree to follow.
I love that. It takes the pressure off us to be like the tech police all the time. And it gives kids a say in the process.
Exactly. And it teaches them things like negotiation and compromise and responsibility.
Wow, so it's like we're not just setting screen time limits, we're helping them become responsible digital citizens. But what about those times when they inevitably like push back against the limits? You know, like those tech tantrums. How do we deal with that?
Well, the book really emphasizes consistency with the boundaries you set.
Yeah, that makes sense. Easier said than done though, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But the key is to stay calm and not get into a power struggle. It's about reminding them of the agreement you made together and why those limits are important.
And reminding ourselves too, right? Like why we set them in the first place. Because it's so easy to cave when they're whining. But we're doing it for their good,
Yeah.
not to be the mean parent.
Right. And the book actually talks about how to frame those limits in a positive way. Instead of just saying no more screen time, you could say, hey, it's time to take a break from the screen and do something else fun. Want to play a game? Or go outside.
Oh, I like that. It's like shifting the focus from what they're losing to what they're gaining.
Exactly. And it's remembering we're all in this together. You know, parenting in the digital age is like uncharted territory. We're figuring it out as we go.
This is giving me so much to think about. I'm starting to see tech less as like the enemy and more as this tool that we need to learn to use wisely.
And that's the goal, right? It's not about demonizing technology. It's about finding balance and teaching our kids to do the same.
So we've talked about parenting styles, emotional vocabulary, praise, resilience, and tech. What else is in store for us in this book?
Well, one of the most powerful parts, I think, is about discipline, something that's so important with all this tech stuff.
Ooh, discipline. That's a word that can make even the most confident parent cringe a little bit. But I have a feeling this book takes a different approach.
It does. It moves away from that whole punishment idea and focuses on discipline as a teaching moment.
Interesting. So it's less about do this or else and more about guiding them to make good choices.
Exactly. And it goes into these two types of consequences, natural and logical. So natural consequences are basically about letting kids kind of experience the natural outcomes of their choices. It's a really good way for them to learn about cause and effect.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that would work for some things. Like if they don't want to wear a jacket and it's cold out, well, they're going to be cold.
Exactly. And the key is to resist that urge to rescue them, let them feel that discomfort, and they'll probably make a different choice next time.
But what about when the natural consequence could be dangerous? Like what if they run into the street? We can't just let that happen.
Right. Of course not. That's where logical consequences come in. Those are the ones that we as parents, but they're still related to the behavior.
So like if they keep throwing their toys and breaking them, a logical consequence would be taking those toys away for a while.
Yeah, exactly. It's about helping them see that connection between their actions and what happens because of them.
And about learning to take responsibility for their choices.
The book also talks about how important consistency is with discipline. If the rules are always changing or we keep making exceptions, it just sends mixed messages, and then they're more likely to push the boundaries.
Yeah, I get that. But I think that's where a lot of parents struggle, me included. It's easy to slip up, especially when you're tired or stressed.
Oh, absolutely. But the book has some good tips for staying consistent. Like one thing is to actually involve the kids in making the rules and consequences.
Oh, that's a good idea. So they feel more ownership over it. And they're more likely to actually follow the rules.
Exactly. And it teaches them life skills too, right? Like how to negotiate and solve problems.
So it's win-win. It's about creating that family culture of respect and working together. instead of just parents versus kids all the time.
Right. And that kind of respectful communication, it's super important for helping kids develop social skills too.
Speaking of social skills, that's another area where technology can really complicate things. I mean, they're spending so much time online. Sometimes I worry they're missing out on real face-to-face interactions.
Yeah, a lot of parents worry about that. But the good news is the book says social skills are like any other skill. They can be learned and practiced.
Okay, so how do we help them build those social muscles, even in a world that's so tech-focused?
It starts with us. We have to model those healthy interactions ourselves.
So, like, put our own phones down and actually talk to our kids.
Yeah. And not just them, everyone around us. Let
Sure.
them see us being kind and compassionate and respectful.
It's about walking the walk right, not just talking the talk.
And then creating those opportunities for them to practice those skills in real life.
Like play dates and stuff, or group activities, even just taking them to the store and letting them talk to the cashier.
Exactly. Give them different social situations to practice in. Things like communication and cooperation and how to work through disagreements.
The book also mentions teaching them to be assertive right, like setting boundaries and standing up for themselves.
Oh, definitely. That's so important for any social setting.
Mm-hmm.
But especially online with all the cyberbullying and peer pressure and stuff.
Yeah, it's hard enough to navigate all that in the real world, but online it's like everything is magnified times 10.
So true. That's why it's so crucial to give them the tools they need to handle those situations. The book even suggests doing some role-playing with them.
Like practicing how to respond if someone's being mean online.
Yeah. Or how to say no if someone's pressuring them to do something they don't want to do.
That's so smart. It gives them a safe space to practice those skills and build their confidence.
And it teaches them that they have the power to choose how they react.
This is so empowering. It's making me realize we have more influence than we think over how our kids develop socially and emotionally.
And a huge part of that is fostering their resilience. We can't protect them from everything, but we can give them the tools they need to bounce back.
Right. So we've talked about modeling resilience ourselves. What else does the book say about building resilience in kids?
One of the most powerful things is helping them develop what's called a growth mindset.
Wait, remind me what that is again?
It's basically the belief that our abilities and intelligence aren't fixed. Like they can actually be developed through effort and learning.
So instead of saying I'm bad at math, they would say I'm not good at math yet, but I can get better if I practice.
Yeah, exactly. It's shifting the focus from innate talent to the power of hard work and not giving up.
So how do we actually help them develop that kind of mindset?
It goes back to that descriptive praise we were talking about, focusing on their effort and not just their achievements.
Okay, so like instead of saying you got an A, you're so smart, we would say I'm so proud of how hard you studied. Your hard work really paid off.
Exactly. You're celebrating the effort and resilience, not just the end result.
And helping them see mistakes as opportunities to learn, not as failures.
The book even talks about replacing the word failure with not yet. So instead of I failed that test, it would be I'm not yet where I want to be, but I'm going to keep working at it.
Oh, I love that. It takes the pressure off. It helps them see challenges as just part of the learning process.
And that resilience is going to be so important for them in life, especially with how fast the world is changing all the time.
This is such a good reminder. It's not about protecting them from hard things. It's about giving them the tools to face those challenges and come out stronger.
And a big part of that is teaching them how to regulate their own emotions.
Yeah, let's talk about that. We talked about naming emotions and having a feelings vocabulary. But how do we actually help them manage those big, overwhelming feelings, especially when technology is kind of making those feelings even bigger sometimes?
Well, the book has some practical strategies for that. Like one thing is to create a calm down space in your home.
Like a designated chill-out zone.
Exactly. It could be a corner with pillows and blankets, or a quiet spot in their room, even a tent in the backyard.
That's so cute. It gives them a place to go when they just need a break.
And it teaches them that it's okay to take a break when they're feeling overwhelmed.
But what about those moments when they're like in the middle of a meltdown and can't seem to calm down?
The book talks about teaching them some relaxation techniques, like deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation, even just listening to some calming music.
Those are great ideas. Sometimes I think we forget to do those things ourselves, though. We get so caught up in the chaos that we forget to like breathe and take a moment.
Oh, totally. And the book really stresses that self-care for parents is crucial. We can't pour from an empty cup, you know.
That's so true. How can we teach our kids to regulate their emotions if we're running on empty ourselves?
Exactly. It's about modeling those healthy habits and making self-care a priority.
So that might look like meditating for a few minutes, or going for a walk,
Mhm.
or taking a bath at the end of the day,
Yeah, whatever helps you feel more grounded and recharged.
and being kind to ourselves when we inevitably mess up.
Because let's face it, parenting is hard. There are going to be days when we lose our patience or feel like we're failing.
But we're all doing the best we can with what we have.
And even on our worst days, we're still the best parents for our kids.
Oh, that's nice to hear. It's about giving ourselves a break and remembering we're not alone in this. This deep dive has been such a good reminder that it's not about being perfect.
It's about being present
Mm.
and intentional and willing to keep learning and growing right alongside our kids.
And remembering that the most important thing is our love and support.
Now, before we wrap up this part, I want to leave you with something to think about.
Yeah.
The book talks about how important it is for kids to have a sense of purpose.
Oh, yeah. I love that. It's something we all want as adults, right? To feel like our lives have meaning. But we often forget how important that is for kids, too. How do we help them find their purpose, especially with all the messages they're getting online?
Well, one thing the book suggests is encouraging them to explore their passions.
Yeah.
Now, it could be anything,
Wow.
sports, music, art, even activism,
And giving them chances to actually use those passions to make a difference.
to make the world a better place.
So it could be something small even, like helping with chores or volunteering somewhere.
Exactly. It's showing them that they can have a positive impact, even if it seems small.
I love that. It's like we're raising a generation of mini change makers. Oh, but before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier. Self-care for parents.
Yeah, can't forget about that. We can't pour from an empty cup. If we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't be the best parents we can be.
Totally. It's like that airplane oxygen mask thing, right? Put yours on first before you help your kids with theirs. But it's so hard in real life. Self-care always seems to end up at the bottom of the list.
Oh, tell me about it. But the book reminds us that even little things can make a big difference, like taking a few minutes to meditate, or going for a walk, or just that hot bath at the end of a long day,
Yeah, finding those moments to breathe and recharge.
and giving ourselves permission to put our needs first sometimes, even if it means saying no to stuff or asking for help.
Ugh, that's a tough one for so many parents. Me too. It's like we feel like we have to do it all. Be super mom or super dad.
But we're human. We're going to have those days when we're totally overwhelmed and exhausted and
Yeah.
maybe even a little resentful. And that's okay.
It's about being honest about those feelings and finding healthy ways to deal with them.
And remembering, we're not in this alone.
There are so many other parents out there going through the same things, feeling the same things, figuring it all out as we go.
That's what's so great about this book.
Mm.
It gives us the tools and the knowledge and reminds us that we have support to deal with all the ups and downs of parenting.
This deep dive has been awesome. It's like it's not about being perfect.
It's about being present, being intentional,
Mm.
and being open to learning and growing along with our kids.
And just remembering that the most important thing we can give them is our love and support.
Now, I know we're wrapping up, but I have to share one last thing that really stuck with me from the book. The author talks about family rituals and routines and how we can use those as opportunities for connection and communication and even emotional growth.
Oh, that's so interesting. It's not just about the big vacations or the fancy birthday parties.
Right. It's the everyday stuff. Dinner time, bedtime stories, just talking about our day.
Those are the moments that build family and create those memories that last.
And it's where we can really show them what it means to be emotionally intelligent, how to communicate, how to understand each other.
So I encourage everyone listening, think about your family's routines this week. See if there are any little changes you can make to make those moments even more meaningful.
Yeah, and don't worry about being perfect. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
Just keep showing up with love and a willingness to learn, and keep nurturing your kids' emotional well-being.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that's it for this deep dive, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time for another exciting exploration.